I don't do EQ demos very often because one thing that I've learned over the years is that every single engineer and musician EQs things radically differently. It's a very kind of personal choice. So the last thing that I want to happen when I'm demoing EQs is for someone to say, well, I don't like that EQ because I don't like your EQ choices. So I've tried to take a bit of a balanced approach on this and not do anything too crazy so you can kind of hear what it sounds like and the color of it, because it's a really unique kind of special EQ. I know I've never had hands-on experiences with the real version of these because they were kind of custom made for those studios, and it was made during a time when they're doing a very specific kind of music. And so I think a lot of people kind of think that these will only do kind of more Motown funky things from like the 60s and 70s, but I was pretty surprised by these. They sounded really good to me. The other thing that really interested me about the MotorCity EQs is that because they're very specific frequency points and everything's stepped, these are generally not frequency points that I tend to use very often. And so I thought this would be a good opportunity to use something that would force me to work in a way that I generally don't. I think, especially on mix bus, usually when I'm boosting stuff as an overall mix bus EQ, usually starting around 30 or 40 hertz on the low end and then going up to like 20 or even those air bands that you get in some of the more modern EQs. So I've found that this works really good on mix bus. I'll show you a few examples, but this is a great tracking EQ. And because I don't want to say it's limited, but this isn't like a Swiss Army knife where you're going to be able to really get in there and, do problem solver EQ stuff. It kind of forces you in a way to work kind of in limited little bands. And you basically just sit there and turn things up and down, and it either sounds good or it doesn't. And so I did find overall, when it works well, it works really well. And, there's some situations where obviously because you can't really change Q settings or, narrow end on specific bands, sometimes it's just not going to work well. But like I said, when it does work well, it works really well. One of the things I found out really quickly with the MotorCity EQ is that it really likes to be pushed. I think one thing that Heritage changed that was a little bit different from the original vintage units is they kind of changed the output stage and added their own transformer. And whatever they did, I think it worked really well. It sounds great. So we're going to get away from the whole kind of Motown funky thing from the 70s. I'm just going to show you something that's a little more modern so you can hear this in, a situation that a lot of other people reviewing this are probably wanting it to kind of do that old 60s, 70s thing. We're going to try it on some modern stuff. First thing that we're going to listen to, I just wanted to point this out, on acoustic guitar, and one of the things this is one of those cool things that I figured out on the unit that I don't think I've seen anyone do. Each of these frequency bands kind of overlap a bit on each other. And so on acoustic guitar, for example, I didn't really feel like I needed to EQ it. I kind of spent time placing the mics and picking good guitars for the song. It sounded really good as is. One thing you can do on these is basically rack up all the bands and push into it a little bit more for some color. On most sources, this works pretty well. It doesn't sound like you have any like notched out spaces where there's not really an overlap between frequencies. So as you'll see on acoustic guitar, I backed off on a few frequencies, but I'm pushing everything up on the EQ just to drive it a little bit and get some color. So we'll start with acoustic guitar so that you can kind of hear this as a color enhancer and not as a crazy EQ. We'll work our way into some other sources, and then we'll hear it on the full mix.
said in the beginning, it's looking pretty bleak. So call this number toll free. Before you save the world, you better look the part. It only takes a little oil and aerosol. Now I can't see the stars. This fog of war engulfing every sunrise at the point of no return. Picture perfect places, ash beneath our feet. The polar bears are dying, the butterflies burned, the dollar store's a lie. Now everyone's broke, Bitcoin, GameStop, AMC, products of a virtual reality. We'll try to burn this down before we all drown. Now I can't see the stars, this fog of war engulfing every sunrise at the point of no return. Picture perfect places, ash beneath our feet. No, ash beneath our feet. Now I can't see the stars, this fog of war engulfing every sunrise at the point of no return. Picture perfect places, ash beneath our feet.
These last two examples are going to be the MotorCity EQ over the whole mix bus. I've done a mix of the song, so it's over everything. The first example, I've split the mix into mid sides. So the top channel is going to be the mid channel, the bottom channel is going to be the sides, and you'll see that I've done some pretty drastically different choices on the mid channel versus the side. I've pushed up the level on the sides a little bit just to make it sound a little bit wider, and done some pretty severe, well, more severe EQ choices than you've seen up to this point. The second example is just going to be normal stereo where it's left and right. So they're both doing the same thing and it's a little bit more subtle. So kind of wanted to give you two different examples on the mix bus, one that's a little bit more severe with the mid side and then just a little bit of subtle sweetening left, right, like you normally do.
The polar bears are dying, the butterflies burn, the dollar store's a lie. Now everyone's broke. Bitcoin, GameStop, AMC, products of a virtual reality. We'll try to burn this down before we all drown. Now I can't see the stars, this fog of war engulfing every sunrise at the point of no return. Picture perfect places, ash beneath our feet. No, ash beneath our feet. Now I can't see the stars, this fog of war engulfing every sunrise at the point of no return. Picture perfect places, ash beneath our feet. The polar bears are dying, the butterflies burn, the dollar store's a lie. Now everyone's broke. Bitcoin, GameStop, AMC, products of a virtual reality. We'll try to burn this down before we all drown. Now I can't see the stars, this fog of war engulfing every sunrise at the point of no return. Picture perfect places, ash beneath our feet. No, ash beneath our feet. Now I can't see the stars, this fog of war engulfing every sunrise at the point of no return. Picture perfect places, ash beneath our feet.
I think that'll do it. Thanks for watching. If you liked what you heard and you want to hear a little bit more of, what the microphones were for that song and all that other stuff, check out the review that I did for the Nordic Audio NU-24K microphone. All the examples you heard were from that. That was a good guinea pig for this video because all of those session files were the Nordic mic going through my AEA TRP preamps, so a pretty clean signal chain overall. So aside from the mix bus where you heard a full mix of the song, everything else were just the straight mic files going through this, so that any of the color and stuff you're hearing were coming from the MotorCity EQs. So check that video out if you want to hear more.